Alright people, welcome to the Brews at 10 here on my left eye. I'm your host Lefty. You're all very welcome here tonight. How are you brewing, people? Hope you're brewing well. Yes, bit of a change of schedule tonight. There was no Prime Minister's questions today. That had slipped my mind, unbeknownst to me, until I went to get the video of it on YouTube. But I did have the stream scheduled and there's other stuff to talk about anyway, but just wanted to get that in there from the get-go. But do stick around. Lots more stuff to talk about. Great to see the chat's warming up nicely. Divinia, Chris, Odin, great to see you. Redath, how are you brewing tonight? Yes, so alas, no live commentary and analysis of PMQs, which is a bit of a shame because I did have a modification for a game that we play while we're watching PMQs. I will still tell you about the change, slight change, in a short while, but we'll just get warmed up first. I think they'll be back next week for PMQs. It could be a half-term thing. A lot of schools are on half-term at the moment. The butlers probably can't stand the kids, so that's why they've got to stay at home or something. Please do make sure you've hit thumbs up on the stream, good people, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, they, thems and comrades alike. That really does help to give the channel a boost. Morbius and Kit, great to see you as well, and Jacqueline joining us in the chat. Hope we're all brewing nicely. Yeah, also please do give us a follow on social media. Blue Sky is the primary one at the moment, but also on Mastodon. Still hoping a lot more people join us over on Blue Sky from Twitter. Always Twitter, never X. So there is still an account, but I'm not sure that'll be lasting long on Twitter, current state of affairs. Notwithstanding. Politics Clive, great to see you as well. Yeah, speaking of ways of supporting the channel, customary shout out to all of the members. I updated this list earlier. Thanks to a lot of you who've renewed your memberships recently, as well as those who've gifted memberships to other viewers. Really great to see the community growing bit by bit. Community, never shy of a tea pun here on the Brews at 10. And you can join this list of people. It's just 99p. There's some perks for you to enjoy, including exclusive content and early viewings. And speaking of which, if you are a member, there was a video out earlier this evening. It's the latest instalment in Trump and Musk's batshit crazy corner. I'll be diving into those events as well tonight on the live stream, but please do check that channel out. That's members first. Just one of the many perks of joining the legendary brew crew, whose names you can see before you. And Kit is celebrating 7 months of membership. Thanks a lot for your support over the 7 months, Kit. great to have you in the Brew crew. Solidari-Tea. And a gifted membership as well from Andy Carter. So I'll have some more updating of the list to do. Let's get you good people in the chats up on the screen. There we go. Thanks again for that, Andy. Solidari-Tea, brother. Your continued support on the channel is a very awesome thing. Thank you very much. So, in lieu of PMQs, while we have our brews, risk of turning into a poem. No, there will be some other subjects to discuss, to digest tonight on the live stream. Matters in the States, matters in the UK, everybody's falling out. Zelenskyy and Trump are having a very open argument, while I guess Putin is just sitting back in his chair and laughing at this point, as we approach the 3-year anniversary of the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And as per the title of that members first video I just mentioned, I'm sure you're all well aware that Tusk has recently accused Ukraine of starting the war because, you know, they didn't give up their territory like anyone else would do. So there's that. Zelensky's been hitting back, it's been back and forth. They've been calling each other dictators, is another thing. But Keith is still grounded firmly on Zelensky's camp, which creates further rift, further tension, could you say, between the UK and the United States, that is officially, diplomatically. And Kit and Morbius, thank you very much for the gifted memberships as well. Solidarity to you both. Great stuff. Yeah, I'm hoping we can get over the 100 members milestone very soon. We're getting there, fluctuating between 80 and 90 in recent weeks. Thanks a lot for all your contributions in helping us get towards that target. You legends. So where was I? Yes, Keith still backing Zelenskyy, as I said. Members of the EU have been meeting. This is the kind of crazy whirlwind stuff we would come to expect when Trump got elected for the second time. And another gifted membership from Morbius. Thanks again. Yeah, it does just pick somebody at random. So I guess in that sense it's almost like, I don't know, I won't say a lottery, it's almost like a game within itself. Like one of the grabbing machines at the arcades. But a lot better value, I should say. Yeah, Zelensky's been left out in the cold by the States. This is quite a turnaround of events. Of course, Biden was a staunch ally of Zelenskyy. I'll dive into some clips and articles soon. I've got that conference in full. There was a lot of other stuff that Trump went on about. I used a few clips from it in the Members Fist video that's out now, but there's a lot more to get into with that as well. And thanks for another gifted membership, Andy. Awesome. And Kit. Great stuff. Thank you very much, people. Also coming up, things aren't looking great for Labour on a couple of matters. Even more polling disasters, and calls for Jonathan Reynolds to resign over, you guessed it, it's becoming a bit of a pattern now, lying on his CV. We talked about Rachel Reeves doing that recently. Jonathan Reynolds is now under the cosh for apparently being caught out doing the same, with a claim that he worked at a solicitor's firm. So we're getting into that as well. Doc Davies, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Guitar Guy as well. And Super Tiny up in the chat. Hope you're all doing well. Odin and did you manage to top up your brew, Andy? Keep us posted. Got a roving reporter. Roving mostly around the kettle from recent reports. Great stuff. Whatever you're on, coffee, Solidari speckled hen. And Graham Serra, thanks a lot for that super chat. Wonderful. Solidari-Tea to you for that. Thanks again. Let's I'll just get in the chat myself and give that some appreciation. Thank you very, very much. Hope you're having a good evening. Hope you're brewing nicely. So where to begin? I'll start with an article or two, and then I've got, like I said, that conference, that news conference in full. Try and get through as much as that as we can. So this is the latest there. Zelensky's not looking very pleased, is he? Well, it's no wonder. Well, look at that image there. Obviously, that's doctored or Photoshop, whatever. Should have used that for the bloody thumbnail. Now I think about it. Damn. Just make a note of that. Okay. No, seriously though, it's quite rare that you see such a turn of events in terms of a country getting behind one nation militarily and monetarily, the hundreds of billions that Biden has thrown into this conflict, and unwavering support for Zelenskyy is in stark contrast to these recent comments from Trump, who's now clearly in Camp Putin. Which sounds like a summer camp you definitely shouldn't send your children to. Bye, we're off to Camp Putin. Oh no. It's just a gulag with some deflated balloons limping to the outside. I don't know. That's what I'm picturing immediately. But that's another matter. And now how he's turned tail and run over to Russia. So let's just have a bit of a read through this. I'll skim through some of the latest reports. Today saw a heated back and forth between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Trump escalated his comments a few hours ago by calling Zelenskyy a dictator. He had previously claimed that the Ukrainian leader was down to a 4% approval rating among the Ukrainian public, a claim that is not true. Yeah, and I mentioned that in the video. It's 57% actually, and that's higher than Trump's current approval rating by about 11%. Also calling him a dictator, I'm sure you remember, prior to becoming president-elect, when he won the election, Trump made a very bold declaration that he would be a dictator from day one. So, yeah. Double standards, hypocrisy, lies, flying all over the place, obviously, where Donald Trump's concerned. That's of no surprise whatsoever. So it says his comments followed a statement from Zelenskyy, who said Trump is living in a disinformation space fueled by Russia. The exchange sparked reactions from world leaders, and Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz called Trump's comments false and dangerous. Putin said he would meet his US counterpart with pleasure, but added that such a meeting would have to be well prepared. That must be some massive rider that Vladimir Putin's got. Yeah. So a special United States envoy for Ukraine arrived in Kiev ahead of a planned meeting with Zelenskyy. That's scheduled for tomorrow. Today saw further attacks in the region. 2 people were killed in a Russian strike on the eastern Ukrainian city of Konstantinivka in Donetsk, according to the regional head. Later in the day, 1 person was killed in a Ukraine drone attack on Russia's border in the region of Belgorod. So this is a kind of the main bullet points. It kicks off on Truth Social, Trump's social media platform. That was where he was throwing the shade, as it were, and calling him a dictator. He also criticised him for not holding elections, but even Trump himself knows that there's been martial law in Ukraine, which generally means that you don't hold elections. Zelensky's hit back on social media himself to thank Keith for the UK's support. He says, "Our support matters indeed, and we will never forget the respect the British people have shown for Ukraine and our citizens. Thank you for your support," he says. Personally, I have no more admiration for Zelenskyy than I do Putin. That's for sure. Don't really have a horse in this race, aside from to say that like a sustained peace, obviously, but not the type of deal that Donald Trump's talking about. I mean, first of all, he storms in, says, "Yeah, I'll sort this thing out for you. I'll make peace. We could even back you up with US troops if you give us half of your resources, half of your natural minerals." Like, I don't know what you could compare that to. Do you remember a while back there was the thing over these payday loans, and people getting these payday loans with ridiculous interest rates for people, obviously people who were going through austerity and poverty at the time. They're now illegal. a lot of these, especially because of the methods that they used to. It was essentially as close to legal loan sharking as you can get, but that's the sort of offer, you know, you can imagine them making on a political level. 50%. And they're just a straight up no back from Zelenskyy. And that seems to have rattled Trump's cage a little. JC Vasco, great to see you. Hope you've been well. And my pal Foot in the chat as well. Good evening to you. So yeah, no one's going to accept a deal like that. And there were talks about exchanges of territory and that Russia could have some Ukraine territory. All of these talks and conditions being drummed up without Zelensky's presence or anyone from Ukraine on a diplomatic level. So Trump doesn't really use diplomacy, just has a background in sort of real estate hustling in a very bullish fashion, of course. So Zelenskyy went on to say, "We cannot allow Putin to deceive everyone again. Before any potential negotiations, all partners must clearly understand that strong security guarantees are the priority for lasting peace," he wrote on Twitter. Always Twitter, never X. I guess another overriding, particularly concerning, bordering on worrying factor in all of this is the way the pieces are on the board, if you want to put it in such terms, the way they are at the moment. You're potentially looking at the United States of America and the Russian Federation teaming up against the European Union. Now, of course, the UK is not part of any of those aforementioned entities anymore, following our departure from the EU. However, Starmer's stance remains firm, remains with Ukraine, and that's going to be the situation for the European Union as well. So we may as well consider ourselves, even though we aren't part of the EU, we are still following the same principles as the EU are, on this topic at least. So there have been comparisons made, of course, quite a lot recently to history repeating, and a lot of things looking like they were at the start of the previous world wars, 1 and 2 respectively, depending on which way you perceive current events. But these, when you look at essentially a group of 3 superstates, a trinity of superstates as it were, with conflicting interests, 2 of whom are already at war and have been for 3 years, then it's not a great recipe for peace. And if Russia and the USA did somehow want to continue to try to pick on the EU, undermine the EU, whether it's out of a sense of what threat they might have to the United States or Russia economically, then that, for example, is one of the things that led to the start of World War One. And yes, a lot of politics has changed between now and then. But where collusion is concerned, where allies are concerned, you could be looking at the 21st century version of the Entente Cordiale, so to speak. Very worrying. That's particularly worrying. As I said, just in a sort of broader sense of things. Okay, what else has been happening? I'll go on to this conference in just a moment. Let's hear from the Swedish Prime Minister, speaking of the EU, Ulf Kristersson, spoke at a press conference, and he said the outcome of the war will affect European security for generations to come. For generations to come isn't particularly optimistic language, well, not to my ears at least. But when asked about Trump branding Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy as a dictator, Kristersson said that was an incorrect description. He is democratically elected. He says, "I think nobody wants elections more than Ukraine, because elections will mean that there is peace in Ukraine and that they can rule over their country again." His comments follow a video conference of European leaders initiated by French President Emmanuel Macron to discuss the ongoing war. Olaf Scholz, of course, also threw in his 2 cents, as I said. And Denmark have announced 50 billion kroner, that's about $7 billion, which is probably in the region of about 5 billion British pounds sterling, for defence spending over the next 2 years, citing an increased threat from Russia. And the Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, told reporters the message sent to her country's military is buy, buy, buy. The move will bring the country's total defence spending to the highest in more than half a century. That's buy with a U, by the way, not as in when you part in ways. This all feels very significant. US envoy General Kellogg is going to be meeting with Zelenskyy as well. He's a serial negotiator. I said he's a serial negotiator. Kellogg, General. Okay, moving on. So Ukraine is short of 1 or 2 bits and pieces. Of course, the US have been the main contributor to backing them. So they need air defense missiles, this kind of thing. Trump's position raises the question, where are we supposed to get them from? Zelenskyy said earlier today that Ukraine is running out of Patriot air defense missiles and says we're counting them every day. We haven't got air defense missiles. I think this is wrong. So I guess Trump, if you want to try and analyse how he might be thinking, probably just wants to leave them as sitting ducks. Which I think is going to happen. That's going to be the most likely outcome. The UK have pledged billions, or hundreds of billions, over the next century. But we're nowhere near the top contributor. Nobody else is going to step in there, of course. Is a cornflake better than a snowflake? Sorry, in the chat there. Yeah, tough crowd. Tough crowd. Not as tough as the one that JD Vance had the other day. Kiev residents say Trump's acting like a bully. What's the king waded in with? He visited a medical project in London today which provides support for Ukrainian service personnel injured in the war. Fresh sanctions have also come from France. Let's just go over and see this article about Keith's reiteration that he will continue to stand by Ukraine. I've got your back. Even Keith doesn't go back on a pledge that quickly. But, you know, stay tuned, you never know. In a couple of weeks. He could, no, I don't think so. So there's Keith and his mates. Let's just check that's lined up. Okay, so Keith says it's perfectly reasonable for Ukraine to suspend elections during wartime as the UK did during World War II. The call came after, yep, yada yada yada, we've just been through all that. Downing Street spokesman said Sir Keir stressed the need for everybody to work together in his phone call with the Ukrainian president. The Prime Minister expressed his support for President Zelenskyy as Ukraine's democratically elected leader and said it was perfectly reasonable to suspend elections. Yeah. Wow. Not quite the same circumstances, of course. Kemi Badenoch, Bad Enoch. Oh. What's happened there? She's waded in as well. Sorry, I don't know what happened with the scrolling there. Bad Enoch said Zelenskyy was the democratically elected leader of Ukraine who bravely stood up to Putin's illegal invasion. All double standards, of course, were other current conflicts and occupations are concerned in the Middle East, but that comes to be expected. She's urged Keith to get on a plane to Washington and show some leadership. So Keith's going to go to DC for his first in-person meeting with Trump as he seeks to influence the American approach to ending the war in Ukraine. But he did, as we mentioned the other day, say that he wants the United States to be a backstop. He's sort of still trying to kiss Trump's arse, even while he's openly backing Zelenskyy. But I don't think Keith has any weight in terms of the he's going to get eaten alive by Trump, and Trump is being played like an absolute puppet by Putin. Ergo, I guess if Putin wants anything out of Keith, he'll just do it using Trump as a proxy, or a conduit for that. Of course, we are in the pocket of the States, and have been for some time. James Cleverly, remember him? Yeah, he's made an appearance in this article now. The misnomer James Cleverly. He said Trump was wrong about Zelenskyy and urged Foreign Secretary David Lammy to say so, adding his silence is deafening. Well, in an extraordinary turn of events, I guess I do have to agree with James Cleverly, though. God, I can't believe I just said that. Just stick in my mouth. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, but Lammy's been dead quiet. He's tried to play both sides on a lot of issues, especially Israel and Palestine. But also, it's his job to be saying the right things where there's diplomatic tension like this. Even Boris Johnson, Alexander Boris de Faffel Johnson, I should say, has waded in, saying, of course Ukraine didn't start the war. And again, I guess even he's correct. It's such an obvious mistake. And there's just like shooting fish in a barrel and everybody's lined up. So quite rare that I'd agree with Johnson on anything, but there you go. Of course, Ukraine didn't start the war. Or however he'd say it. He added Trump's statements are not intended to be historically accurate, but to shock Europeans into action. That's pretty rich. His statements are not intended to be historically accurate. Yeah. Are those book sales going, Johnson? Not too great. Just finally, UK Defence Secretary John Healey visited Norway's border with Russia with the Norwegian Defence Minister Tor Sandvik, and asked whether the UK agreed with Trump's suggestion that Ukraine started it. He told reporters that 3 years ago, one country illegally invaded another, and since then, Ukrainians have been fighting for their freedom. So whilst the focus may be on talks, not even negotiations are concerned, as defence ministers, is that we're not jeopardising the peace by forgetting about the war. So let's see what he's saying in the chat, people. Let me know your thoughts on this topic, whether you're listening live or on a replay. If you are with us live tonight, please do hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel, and that way you'll be able to join the chat just 1 minute later. Okay, people, moving on. Gonna go into that news conference in a bit more thorough detail in just a moment, people. Just give me a couple of seconds to get something lined up, and while I do that, please make sure you've hit the thumbs up button and given us a share on your social media. I'll be right back with you. Sit tight, people. Okay, we're good to go. I'll be skipping through a few bits. The whole thing lasted about 40 minutes, so I won't subject you to the entire thing. I summarised it in that video that was out today. Just a reminder, please do check that out if you remember. That's on Members First until tomorrow, and for non-members, please do add that to your playlist, so you can check it out when it becomes public. Or you can join the channel for just 99p and watch it immediately after the stream, if you simply cannot wait. Alwyn Hornsey, thanks for joining us in the chat. And thanks for throwing up the Palestine flags as well. Viva Viva Palestina. Right, let's get into this. Let's do this thing.
I want to thank some of the great people from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. They're here to take photographs, and it's my honor to do so. Also, the fire department, the great firefighters. So they're here throughout the room, and I want to thank you very much for being here. I'll be with you in a little while. We'll do some great photos. We have plenty of time. Policemen, policewomen, and firemen, firewomen, they're here, and we appreciate it very much. You've done a fantastic job. I think it's very important to state that incredible things are happening in our country. I think we've made more progress in 3 weeks than they've made in 4 years, especially with respect to the reputation of our country. And people are respecting us again as a country and as a powerful country and maybe a smart country, but
don't
maybe
think
not
so.
so smart, because when you look at some of the waste, fraud, and abuse that's being uncovered by Doge and the people at Doge, these are young, often young, but super brilliant people, incredible computer scientists.
I think $4 million a day that you're giving to Musk
waste and
would
abuse
perhaps count as a waste.
I think nobody ever thought possible. But before we do that, I just want to ask Will to come over. I've just finished signing some executive orders. And
I'll skip through this part.
Back into.
It's just
a little bit of a chance. Yes, thank you.
Some executive orders, and he went on about tariffs for a bit in that part of the opening gambit. So he's taking questions.
The EU representative is going to be here in Washington tomorrow. He's going to be meeting with Hassett and Greer and Letnick. What can the EU do to sort of avoid the reciprocal tariffs that you've talked about? And, you know, you've talked a lot about the VAT. Do you expect them to reduce that?
Well, they did already, as I understand it, reduce their car tariff all the way down to what we have. And a lot of that will take place, and I think some won't do it and some will do it. But the EU had a 10% tax on cars, and now they have a 2.5% tax, which is the exact same as us. So already we've saved a tremendous amount. That would be great. If everybody would do that, then we'd all be
he did
on the
his
same playing field.
old-fashioned,
What we're doing with the tariffs,
they will, they won't, they might, I think they will, but they might not. Then after the fact, he will always claim that he predicted whatever it was. That's his technique.
You know, I appreciate that they did this, but you know, the EU has been very unfair to us. We have a deficit of $350 billion. They don't take our cars, they don't take our
because they're shite.
They don't take almost anything. They take very little, and we're going to have to straighten that out, and we will. I have no doubt about it. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Russia talks?
Why would you order it? You know, if you do drive, why would you get a car all the way from America when most of the agreed best manufacturers in the world are in Europe as well? And in terms of the electric vehicle market, China is outdoing the States by some degree at this point. So that's why we don't buy your stuff, Donald, because it's shite, and you can keep your chlorinated chicken as well, and anything else that you try and push on us. Really, that's not to totally say that every import is shite, but you know, a lot of the stuff he refers to.
And if you're perhaps more confident or less confident of a deal after what happened today?
Well, much more confident. They were very good. Russia wants to do something. They want to stop the savage barbarianism. I mean, what's going on over there? It's soldiers are being killed by the thousands on a weekly basis. It's ridiculous. And they're not American soldiers. They're Russian soldiers, and they're Ukrainian soldiers largely, although a lot of Koreans have been killed, as you know. Quite a bit of them have been killed. They came over to fight, and a large portion have been wiped out. But we want to end it. It's a senseless war. It should have never happened. Would have never happened if I was president. And it's a shame to see it. And I see pictures that you don't see, but I see pictures of fields that look just horrible. It looks like Gettysburg. If you see the old pictures of Gettysburg, it's soldiers lying all over the field, body parts all over the field. They're all dead. And this is going on a daily basis.
Cannons and muskets. That was the
Both
only.
Russia and Ukraine, they're losing thousands and thousands of soldiers, and a lot of people have been killed too. I think that's one of the things that you'll see historically, and you'll see later on as it goes along. I think people are going to be surprised at how many people, not only soldiers, have been killed in Ukraine.
Yeah, we get
a
it.
A lot more people than you think. Yeah,
it's a war. People.
President Trump, as part of a peace deal with Putin, would you be willing to consider removing all American troops from Europe?
Well, nobody's asked me to do that, so I don't think we'd have to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. But that question's not.
Yeah, of course, America have so many bases in Europe, and including the UK.
Do you support stationing European peacekeeping troops in Ukraine as part of this peace deal?
If they want to do that, that's great. I'm all for it. If they want to do that, I think that's.
You're right, the super truck is an insult. It's a monstrosity of a vehicle, really is.
UK has mentioned it, but if we have a peace deal, I think having troops over there, from the standpoint of Europe, we won't have to put any over there because we're very far away. But having troops over there would be.
We're very far away. We won't have anything to do with it. No, it's just too far. Iraq? No, we're not going there. It's miles away. Vietnam? Forget it. There are very few countries that the United States hasn't directly or indirectly invaded, including political coups and displacement of elected leaders, that sort of thing. Geographical distance isn't the deterrent that Trump's making it out to be, historically. Certainly not.
Fine, I would not object to it at all. We're talking about this now, peace. We have either a ceasefire or a peace itself, and we're looking to do both. We'd start off with the ceasefire, and if they want to do that. I know France was willing to do that, and I thought that was a beautiful gesture. Yeah, please.
Do you have any message for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half.
Okay. They've only had a seat after the invasion, Donald. After the invasion happened, not prior to it. There weren't any negotiations. And you wouldn't have been able to prevent anything because there weren't any negotiations for you to be able to make Putin an offer or try and get Zelenskyy and Putin in a room together. It just would not happen. Yeah, they've had a seat at the table for the last 3 years, but that's after the fact that the country's been invaded by a bordering state.
A half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying
Yeah, it's hundreds. The number of bases, it's in the hundreds
that are
internationally.
shattered, will never be replaced. You can't replace them. 1,000-year-old domes that are so beautiful, you can't replace that. The whole civilization has changed because of what. So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago? You could have made a deal. This is one that could have made a deal. There was no talk of this during the Trump administration. Putin would have never, ever done it. And by the way, we wouldn't have had October 7th. You know that. We wouldn't have had October 7th either in Israel. And we wouldn't have had that mess that's going on over there. It's like we have great fire people here. We're putting out fires. All over the world we're putting out fires. So that wouldn't have happened.
He thinks he's the mighty peacemaker instead of just being a dodgy real estate agent, which is what he really is.
Because of their bad energy policies and also their spending, their terrible spending, wasteful spending.
He's going off on one now.
Scam. It's a scam. It's a whole big scam. Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. I want to ask you a little closer to home. What would it take for you to reconsider the restrictions on the Associated Press? And secondly, some of your advisors are concerned with the Associated Press's style guide, using language and giving guidance to not use words like illegal immigrant or to use phrases like gender-affirming care. And they're concerned about that being an encroaching amount of liberalism in the way in which the press writes about things. Do you share those concerns?
Well, I do think that some of the phrases that they want to use are ridiculous, and I think, frankly, they become obsolete, especially in the last 3 weeks, because many things have happened in the last 3 weeks.
Was there another plane crash today?
I didn't know about that, but I would say that if they want to use certain
in Arizona,
like that, and I guess some are okay, but many
I'll
aren't.
check that out, Kit.
But the
Thanks for
Associated Press just
I mean, we
refuses
said
to
the other day,
the law is
they've
and
fallen
what
out the
is,
sky
taking place. It's
like
called
God knows what.
the Gulf of America now.
It's crazy.
It's not called the Gulf of Mexico any longer. I have the right to do it, just like we have the right to do Mount McKinley, and nobody's even challenging that.
It's
But
called the
only
Gulf of
the
Mexico
essentially, it's primarily
for a
the
reason,
Associated
Donald.
Press, and I don't know what they're doing, but I just say that we're going to keep them out until such time as they agree that it's the Gulf of America. We're very proud of this country, and we want it to be the Gulf of America. Now, the Associated Press,
just
as
gonna
you
check
know, has
out that
been very, very wrong.
Story about the most
on
recent
election,
airline
on
crash.
Trump and the treatment of Trump,
Just
and
a
other
sec.
things having to do with
I'll
Trump
keep the
and
video playing.
Republicans and conservatives. And they're doing us no favors, and I guess I'm not doing them any favors. That's the way life works. But, you know, thank you for the question. Who are you with? Very good question. Thank you. Yes.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that
This is the
something
part with
that
the false
US would
claim
ever
about
support?
his 4% approval
we
rating.
have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating. And we're
He's just pulled that number out of his arse, or Putin's told him to say it. 4%.
Most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings
57.
are collapsed. It looks like a massive
You absolute weapon.
demolition site. The whole, I mean, so many of the cities. I mean, they haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in there. They've done it 20%, but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are absolutely decimated. And, yeah, I would say that, you know, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people have to, wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also. You know, Ukraine is being just wiped out. Look at what's happening to the cities.
Take care.
There are cities, there's not even a building standing. It's a massive, you talk about Gaza. I mean, it's literally, these cities look like Gaza. Actually, many have, percentage-wise, more buildings knocked down than in Gaza. So, you know, people are tired of it. People want to see something happen. And, you know, the other thing that it's been bothering me for a long time, because I solved the problem with NATO. They paid hundreds of billions of dollars into the funds of NATO when I said you got to pay. Because the United
Well, Russia
States
have said that they definitely don't want
countries, and then they take advantage of
NATO
that on trade.
in
But I
Ukraine.
can't see
They
it.
won't accept that as part of the negotiations.
We have to find out.
Backing NATO is not going to...
We have
get you out of this.
believe
Obviously,
President
NATO is
Zelenskyy
America.
said last week that he doesn't know where half of the money is that we gave him. Well, we gave them, I believe, $350 billion, but let's say it's something less than that, but it's a lot. And we have to equalize with Europe because Europe has given us given a very much smaller percentage than that. I think Europe has given $100 billion, and we've given, let's say, 300 plus.
300
it's
billion.
more important for them than it is for us.
You could
We have
almost
an
buy
ocean
Elon
in
Musk for
between,
that.
and they don't.
Oh, speaking of Musk and crashes as well, it was in the news earlier. Parts of his rocket crash landed in Poland. Yeah, they're not too happy about that in Poland.
So I want to see peace. Look, you know why I want? Because I don't want all these people killed anymore. I'm looking at people that are being killed, and they're Russian and Ukrainian people, but they're people. Doesn't matter where they're from on the whole planet. And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no.
Almost. You get to keep almost all of your land. I made an analogy in the video of Mexico, who used to own pretty much, they owned California back in the day, before it was essentially stolen from them. And if they wanted to take that back, do you think that America, under Donald Trump or any other president, would say, oh, that's a fair deal because, you know, we get to keep almost all of our land? No, that's not a good deal from the perspective of any state leader. Nor will it be. Just quickly, an update on that story. Thanks for pointing that out to me in the chat kits about this latest crash in Arizona. It's another mid-air collision between two planes, and 2 people are now confirmed to have been killed. That's awful. Might take a look at that a bit later on.
People would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue. What he was so bad for this. He was so bad, so pathetic, so sad. But with all of that being said, look, it is what it is. When I left, there was no chance that this could have happened. But it happened because we had incompetent leadership at many different levels. But when you see what's taken place in Ukraine with millions of people killed, including the soldiers, millions of people killed, a big percentage of their cities knocked down to the ground. I don't know how anybody even lives
millions.
there. You know, when they say they took a poll.
Obviously, it has been. It's not
and
been
Zelensky's
millions,
at
though.
4%. Who's living there? You know, I mean, people are. It's hard to believe that people live there. Their cities are being knocked down, and this is something that would have never happened. And by the way, for 4 years, it didn't happen. It was never going to happen. Go ahead.
Follow-up question: how would you counter the perception, because Russia's pushing for this, obviously, they don't really hold true elections, that would be a capitulation of some sort? How would you guard against potentially Russia installing a puppet government? And then finally, how would that new election have an impact on getting Zelenskyy to sign the rare earth minerals deal?
Look, you have leadership, and I like him personally.
He's not going to do that deal over the minerals.
I don't care about personally. I care about getting the job done. You have leadership now that's allowed a war to go on that should have never even happened, even without the United States. Look, we had a president who was grossly incompetent. He had no idea what he was doing. He said some very stupid things, like going in for portions and all of the things. He made a lot of bad statements, but he's grossly incompetent, and I think everyone knew that. This is something that should have never happened, would have never happened. And I used to discuss it with Putin. President Putin and I would talk about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, I will tell you that. But there was never a chance of him going in. And I told him, you better not go in. Don't go in. Don't go in. And he understood that. He understood it fully. But I'm only interested. I want to see if I can save maybe millions of lives. This could even end up in a World War III. I mean, to be honest with you, you've been hearing now Europe is saying, well, I think we're going to go in and we're going to go. All of a sudden, you're going to end up in World War III over something that should have never happened. And, you know, it's a very sad situation. Yeah, please.
In a
court filing, the White House said that Elon Musk is not a DOJ employee and has no authority to make decisions. Can you clarify for us today
Well,
what
Elon
his
Musk,
exact role is there?
yeah. Elon is, to me, a patriot. So, you know, you could call him an employee, you could call him a consultant, you could call him whatever you want. But he's a patriot. I mean, look at the kind of things. I just said, just write it down, just in case that question got asked, right? And which I'm surprised it took so long, actually. But you know what? Ukraine's a bigger deal because people are dying by the thousands a week, thousands. But look at this, from 90 to 99, Social Security, 6,054,000 people. Well, that's okay. Maybe that's possible. You know, 90 to 99, maybe it's possible. It's a lot of people, though, at that. But people that live to 100 to 109, 4,734,000. Wow, that's a lot. That means over 100 years old. There are 4 million people. I don't know too many. I know people that are doing great in their 90s.
Just pulling numbers out of the sky now, and essentially saying,
Over
well, we're
120,
going to cull everyone who's over 100 years old. I mean, what kind of talk is
From
this?
120 years old up to 129, 3,472,000 people. Wow. You know that can't possibly be because the record is like, I think it's one person, a woman, lived to 127, but they have 3,400.
Haley Geller, great to see you. Hope you're doing really well.
People from 130 years old to 139-year-old, 3,936,000. Wow. I wonder if people are getting paid with all this. I mean, are these checks? And that's what we're checking right now. People from 140 years old to 149 years old, 3,542,000, 140 years old and beyond. Now we're really going because we're looking to break.
Did he just say 140,000 years old?
People from
Can't even read his
150 years
own
old
scripts.
to 159 years old, 1,345,000. These are in the. By the way, these are in the computer files. This is what they do well. They're super. I asked.
They're on the computer.
These Doge people. He said they're super brilliant computer people and they love the country. It's simple. Wait a minute.
The super brilliant
people from
computer
160
people.
years old
Yeah.
to 169 years.
It's called the Social Security Database, Donald.
170 to 179.
Been around for quite a while.
6,087.
On computer and off,
Now,
you know.
let's go into the real numbers. From 200 to 209 years old.
How long is this going to...
879 people. From 210 years old. I haven't met any of them.
Not met any of them.
If I did, I would bless them. I would.
If you would heal, you would put your hand upon them and heal them.
210 to 219 years, 866.
That's
From 220 years old.
Oh, I'm skipping forward here. This is
229 years old, 1,039.
What is this?
That is most. I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental studies, but I paid like $50,000, not $520 million. $520 million for ESG. $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and promote licit livelihoods by developing...
Climate breakdown is going to cost you a lot more, Donald. You need to make the investment in renewables now.
It's nice, $25 million to go into Colombia.
How much did the Los Angeles wildfires cost? And now you've got
$40 million
flash floods, mudslides in California. How much is that costing?
Of sedentary migrants. $40 million. $42 million for Johns Hopkins, great place, to research and drive social and behavior change in Uganda. $42 million. What about us? What about social change in our country? $70 million for a center at Purdue to research university-sourced, evidence-based solutions to developmental challenges. I mean, these are massive numbers on things that...
So far, the social changes he's made have led to planes falling out the sky on a daily basis.
$10 million for circumcisions in another country. $9.7 million for UC Berkeley.
Because of this clampdown on DEI, they firing everybody who's gay, not white, female, was born in another country, so on and so forth.
$2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia. $32 million to the Prague
I still,
Civil
yeah,
Society
the computers. We've got the top computer people, and I've seen them. Wow, you should see these computers. We have the most computer computers that ever computed. That's for sure.
$486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova.
Is he going to read the entire budget of the fucking treasury at this point?
In India. Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect
This
for the
is
Prime
Mr.
Minister
Tariff.
who just left, as you know, 2 days
He's
ago.
blaming
But
other countries
we're
for having
giving
high
$21 million
tariffs.
for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about like voter turnout here?
The guy whose favourite word is tariffs is having a go at other countries for putting tariffs on America. A lot of those have been in response to his tariffs as well in the first place. Beggars belief.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
We've done that, I guess. We did $500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes. $20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal. Listen to these numbers. This is all fraud. 19 million.
He's just going, screw the elderly, screw Nepal, screw the environment. It goes on and on and on.
$1 million for biodiversity conservation in Nepal. $1.5 million for voter confidence. We want to give them confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $2.5 million for inclusive democracies in South Africa.
Don't forget democracy.
$47 million for improving learning.
Just ask your South
Asia.
African friend.
Asia's doing very well. They're doing a lot better than we do in the schools, aren't they?
China,
yeah,
doing a lot better than you at almost everything.
Increase socioeconomic cohesion among marginalized communities in Kosovo and Escali and in Egypt. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. I could. By the way, I could read this all day long. I could go on.
Please
all day
don't,
long
you crazy orange bastards.
Hundreds of billions of dollars, and we're doing it. But when I saw the Social Security numbers, I said, "Wow, that's really something." So we have. Let's just go above 100 years old. We have millions and millions of people over 100 years old. Everybody knows that's not so. We have a very corrupt country, and it's a sad thing to say, but we're figuring it out. Now, the good thing about Social Security and what I read...
It's attacking old people
if you take all of
without the irony that if he does survive his term, he will be the eldest ever sitting US president, succeeding Joe Biden's record. All
of a sudden, we have a very powerful Social Security with people that are 80 and 70 and 90, but not 200 years old. So
nobody's 200 years old.
Over here, yeah, please.
God.
Who resigned?
The head of Social Security.
I don't know. I mean, I resigned or got fired. I think got fired.
You think
when you fire somebody, they always resign, and then they say, we resigned. But when you have numbers like that, I think really...
He doesn't know about it, but, oh, yeah, wait a second. Yeah, I fired them. No, I didn't. They might have quit. But I fired them because you don't mess with me. That's God.
How many of these people got paid? Were they getting paid? Were they getting paid? How many of them were getting paid Social Security? Because if that's the case, it's a massive fraud. We'll have to call those great Palm Beach police into this situation, right? You guys would figure that out very quickly. But how many of them are being paid? I mean, maybe millions of them. But it's a total fraud.
Yeah,
Also,
they're
a lot of
only
illegal immigrants
25
in
and they just
Social
put on
Security
a lot of
Yeah,
Hollywood-grade makeup to make themselves look, what was it you said, 200 years old.
Some of these workers
Get
focused
to
on nuclear weapon security were immediately rehired. Do you have any concerns about how these terminations have
No,
played out?
not at all. I think we have to just do what we have to do. It's, you're gonna. It's amazing what's been found right now. It's amazing. If we feel that in some cases they'll fire people and then they'll put some people.
You know what's coming next, people? Tortoises. The war on tortoises. Did you hear about this one? It's it's 8,000 years old. Oh, sorry, I lost the volume there.
With workers,
but
yeah, please.
The exaggerations are just going to get worse.
Actually, yes, New York Times.
Tortoise conservation, that's what Doge is going to be going for next. You heard it here first on the Brews at 10 on My Left Eye, people. Quality streaming.
Anywhere near it.
That's right.
Doge and SpaceX employees are now working directly at the Federal Aviation Administration and the Defense Department, agencies that have billions of dollars in contracts with Musk's companies or that directly regulate his companies.
Not only do they have access to social security records, they have a direct link to defence. Elon Musk isn't elected. Doge isn't an official government department. This shouldn't be allowed to happen at all. It's an atrocious attack on democracy, as well as particularly worrying that they want to be involved with defence when it's supposed to be an economic department, a fiscal monitoring department by description. Other than defence spending, God knows what else they could be up to whilst they're messing about in there. Unregulated.
The worst to Guantanamo Bay. What we're finding out is that there are a lot of low-risk migrants who don't have a criminal background who are also being sent. Are you thinking about this differently now?
No, they're going to be brought back to their countries. And with some persuasion, every one of those countries, everyone in the, as you know, every country is taking the people back. So some of them are going to be brought back to, many of them, any of them that are low risk, as you say, are going to be brought back to their countries. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Can you give us a bit of an update on where you stand with Venezuela? It's oil. There's basically a monthly license that can soon
well, you know, we had Venezuela on the run.
Venezuela is not America, so fuck Venezuela, essentially. It's just name a country, just repeat, repeat, repeat. Unless it's Israel, and then they're best friends, but, you know, everyone else can go screw themselves. Where Trump's concerned, that is.
A new, really, lease on life. But we'll see. We had some pretty good discussions with a lot of people within our government and the United States government that are involved in that. And Venezuela's a little bit early, but, you know, we were not buying from Venezuela when Biden came in for whatever reason. Instead of just taking the beautiful, as I call it, liquid gold, we have more than anybody. They started paying a fortune to Venezuela, and we're looking at that, actually. Why did they do that? Why were they doing that? Why would they go to the enemy and give them billions and billions of dollars? Now, with that being said, as you know, Venezuela has said very strongly they will not take any illegal immigrant, any of the people that they sent over to us. They sent their gangs, probably the worst gang anywhere in the world, as bad as MS-13, maybe worse, and they came out of the jails of Venezuela. They emptied their jails into our country, and they said, we'll never take them back. Well, they took them back, and they're taking them back, and they are taking them back rapidly.
They don't do that, Donald. They don't empty a prison out, stick them on a boat, launch it off in the general direction of America and say, have at them, boys. It doesn't work like that, Donald, and you're just trying to fuel xenophobia and racism with these broad, sweeping, false, inaccurate statements.
Chevron and other oil companies to export those petroleum products, or are you
maybe not
to pull back?
Yeah, maybe not. We're looking at that now. I just got here. When I left, they weren't doing anything. They were ready to go. We give up. And then Biden came along and he gave them literally billions of dollars. I couldn't believe it, actually. And we have so much under our feet. Liquid gold, we have so much, and it was pretty amazing. So we're looking at the whole situation.
Liquid death. It's liquid climate breakdown, you bloody fool. Read between the lines. God.
Drone flights over Mexico. Is this the next step in the war against the cartels?
Well, we're going to see.
Should they have authority to take lethal action?
Mexico's allowed a tremendous number of people to go through their country into ours, and even people coming from Mexico, and illegals, totally illegal. They've allowed people to empty jails into Mexico and then let them come through with this totally ridiculous open border policy of the Biden administration. So millions of people have come in, and hundreds of thousands, and actually millions are criminals. They came in from jails all over the world that release them into Mexico, and they come into our country. And they also came in from Canada, by the way, large numbers through Canada. In fact,
no, he's just pulling numbers out of the air again. Yeah, there's thousands of them, hundreds, millions, billions, quintillions, quadrillions.
Is not an uninterested party. But I will say this. We're dealing with Mexico.
There's a Googleplex of illegals flooding into the country.
And that's a sad thing to say. And if they wanted help with that, we'd give them help. But Mexico, if you look at what's gone on with Mexico for years now, but now especially, it's run by the cartels. And they've allowed millions of people to come into our country from jails and prisons of other countries from all over the world, not just South America, Africa, Asia, all over. A lot from the Congo in Africa, a lot. They opened their jails. They came in through Mexico, and we have some of the worst criminals coming in from the Congo and other places. So it's not just South America, and it's not just Venezuela, but they opened their jails. And you know the crime rates in Venezuela and other places all over the world.
This is just pure race baiting and pure shit stirring.
They're prisoners. They've given us their drug lords and their gang members. And it's hard to believe that we accepted this. It's hard to believe that we allowed
America are one of the biggest drug runners historically
hundreds of thousands
in the world, and the DEA as well.
All over the world that are absolute
Don't get started on that.
Criminals. In fact, 11,088 murderers, and many of those people have murdered more than one person. Why are they giving us these people, and why are we taking these people under Biden? You know, you had a border czar that never went to the border. Happened to be a vice president, never went to the border, never called the border people. I call them all the time. I speak to them all the time. But here's the good news. We have the most secure border we've ever had right now. As secure and even more secure than I had it 4 years ago. And the Border Patrol is doing incredible. ICE is doing incredible. Tom Homan's unbelievable, and Kristi Noem has been just working very, very hard, very, very hard. And we have the best numbers we've ever had, and we're going to keep it that way. And we're going to find out how a thing like this could have happened to our country, because who would allow this to happen? What they've done to our country.
Yeah, another excellent point. He's critiquing criminals coming into the country when he himself is a convicted felon. And I can say that because I'm not a member of the White House staff, and if I was, I'd be sacked immediately just for pointing out that he is a felon. So that was the end of that. What do you make of that, people? Blimey. Might need something stronger than a brew after being subjected to that. You're listening to episode 82 of 437 of Donald Trump reading out the entire federal budget. Oh, batshit crazy indeed. In fact, speaking of which, yeah, let's have the outro.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. We will build a great wall along the southern border.
You don't want them to advertise? No. What do you mean? Is somebody going to try to blackmail me with advertising? Blackmail me with money? Go f*** yourself.
That is one big pile of shit.
And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Did you see that? Did you?
Holy moly, people! That was some news conference. I'm liking the emojis there, Andy. Yeah, batshit crazy. Deluded Trump indeed. Doesn't it feel like he's been back for years already? It's only been a matter of weeks. This won't end well. at one point in that word salad he just threw out there, he was accusing other countries of sparking the flames of World War III. And let's be honest, his actions are only going to accelerate that even further. Yeah, only about 6 weeks, JC. That's right. Not very long at all, but it feels like forever. Going to move on to something else in just a moment. Please make sure you've hit thumbs up on the stream, people. I can see we've got 23 concurrent viewers at the moment. All please make sure that you've hit the thumbs up button. Give us a share on your social media as well, if you'd be so kind. Actually, only 4 weeks. A month. A bloody month. Here we are. I'll be moving on to Labour's Wars in just a second. Bear with me for a moment, people. Just double check you've hit that thumbs up button. It is going to be a long 4 years, that's right. And at the end of it, I think between now and the end of his term, he's going to make a serious move to try and change the constitution to try and enable him to have a third term. That is if he lives that long. As I pointed out, he is going to be the eldest sitting president in US history at that point. Alright people, so on to domestic affairs now. There's another damning poll that's been released. I'm just going to drag this into my broadcast software, bear with me. That's queued up. It's another one from the awesome Stats for Lefties. But the numbers are becoming increasingly desperate for Keith and for Labour. For Keith specifically, the question put out was, is he doing well or badly as PM? Only 23% think he's doing well, 66% say he's doing badly. That is shockingly appalling. It's failed to impress. There could be quite a few reasons for this. Most recently, today, it was announced that inflation is going to jump. So all the talk of clamping down on inflation, growth, all of the bullshit rhetoric we've heard from Rachel Reeves and Keith himself, it's all been for naught. as inflation on food, airfares and school fees goes up. We'll have a closer look at that in just a moment. But that's not the only reason that Labour are in a bit of hot water at the moment, as well as the polling. I mentioned at the top of the stream that Jonathan Reynolds has been caught out lying on his CV. This seems to be a pattern developing, a common technique that Labour MPs have used to worm their way up into the upper echelons of power in the UK. Where Reeves is concerned, it was about her length of time at a bank as well as a role at the bank. In Jonathan Reynolds' case, it's over something he's got on his CV about a solicitor's firm. So he previously said he works as a solicitor at a law firm in Manchester, of all places, where this stream is coming to you from this evening. How dare he? Yeah, he said he worked there before becoming a Member of Parliament, but he quit his legal training to run for Parliament in 2010 and never actually qualified. The Tories and Reform have both called for Reynolds to step down from his cabinet role. The minister had been described as a solicitor on his LinkedIn profile, but the BBC were told this was an administrative error that has been corrected. Yeah, just like it was with Rachel Reeves. Oh, bit of a cough on me tonight, excuse me people. Shit! Excuse me. Where were we? The updated profile says that Reynolds was a trainee solicitor, quote, at the Manchester branch of Adelshaw Goddard law firm between 2009 and May 2010. Might get down there myself. Just make a quick note of that on my notes. Previously stated he was both a trainee solicitor and a solicitor, but Shadow Business Secretary Andrew Griffith, who, I don't know either, had written to the Prime Minister's ethics advisor asking him to investigate the claims. Griffith urged Reynolds to apologise and step down, writing that he appears to have knowingly misled the public. Well, if that's the case, then Reeves has got to go as well. She's changed her CV more times than she's changed her shoes. Farage has stuck his 2 cents in. Ugh. But regardless, what's he been saying? Says he misled Parliament. Yeah. He misled Parliament. That's coming from Nigel Farage, by the way. So just to be clear, qualified solicitors are required to register with Solicitors Regulation Authority, SRA, to practice law in England and Wales. The SRA contacted Reynolds in January in relation to an error on the LinkedIn profile and clarified the rules, and the business secretary then corrected the so-called admin error that wasn't an admin error. Yeah, he's been caught out there. That's very poor backtracking. Must have some pretty poor admin staff there in Labour who run the LinkedIn accounts. So that was first reported by the Guido Fawkes website. Do recommend checking that out if you're not familiar with the Guido Fawkes website. I wouldn't mind seeing him step down just to have him absent from all the news rounds and so on and so forth. I think he's been on the Question Time panel a few times as well. It's always generally awful from Reynolds. Yes, Mobius Farage did defend his girlfriend. It was Richard Tice as well who had that lengthy interview in which he said, pretty shockingly, with us being a, quote, Christian nation, then forgiveness comes in to play. And he did his utmost, yeah, to defend someone who, on repeated occasions as well, had been convicted of assaulting his girlfriend at the time. Shocking, you know. Let's have a little bit of a closer look at those revelations about inflation. Delivering the plan. So, perhaps, yeah, inflation on food, which is going to include, you know, many foodstuffs, including sausages. Sausages. So, the article reports that inflation jumped sharply in the year to January, driven by rising food prices, airfares, and an increase in private school fees. Higher than expected jump to 3% from 2.5% in December means prices rose for the fastest pace for 10 months. Staples such as meat, eggs, butter and cereals were all more expensive than a year ago, and it comes as many households prepare for higher energy and water bills later this year. More things to look forward to. Yeah, this coming spring, the profits of fossil fuel companies are going to go up, and so are your bills. Why pass the savings on to the consumer when we could just milk more of the profits and leave pensioners for dead in the cold winter conditions? So it says, while many staples have edged up in price, some such as olive oil and lamb have increased markedly by 17% and 16% respectively. That's a massive increase. The rise in inflation, which is a measure used to give a general picture of how living costs have changed over a year, comes ahead of predicted increases to energy bills coming in April. Not a lot to look forward to in 25, is there? Water and council tax bills are also slated to rise in 2 months' time. So glad Keith's delivering this change with Rachel Reeves. You know, really stellar job that they're doing there. So look at that, butter up 18%, instant coffee up 21%. Everything's up. Families are struggling. One young mother said that her food shopping's almost doubled from about 3 years ago. She used to spend maybe a minimum of £90. She does spend a minimum of £90 a month now, and that doesn't include £20 to £30 topping up during the week with fruit, vegetables and milk. Airfares are going to go up, I guess. Personally, I've not really got anything against that. I'd like to deter people from flying as much as possible, especially where CO2 targets are concerned. We've spoken a lot about the third runway at Heathrow Airport. I do encourage people to travel by other means, if possible, as an environmentalist myself. School fees, though, up 13%, and a lot of families are struggling. Of course, the two-child benefit cap is going to be the other side of that double-edged sword, where austerity against families is concerned. So it's also led to speculation over how the Bank of England will respond with interest rates. High inflation in recent years peaked at 11.1% in October, and it saw the bank raise interest, which pushed up the cost of loans, credit cards and mortgages. So just as a rising tide lifts all boats, of course it's all connected economically, but it's ordinary people who end up paying, consumers, as that wealth gap increases. The Exchequer to the Secretary has even admitted that getting inflation back down to the 2% target will be bumpy. I think that's the way of saying it'll be impossible. With the tactics that Labour are going for at the moment, it's just more austerity, it's just the same old, same old. Ed Davey says the Chancellor's misguided policies are putting us at risk of a new era of stagflation. The economy still isn't growing, and now people are being hit in their pockets too. Ruth Gregory, who's the chief UK economist at Capital Economics, said January's figure would be uncomfortable for the Bank of England, but said she would doubt it would prevent further rate cuts. So it's getting worse and worse, people. Yeah, that's a good point. Some people are buying bulk if you have access to wholesalers. Some people are resorting to that, buying in bulk. Of course, that doesn't help with certain perishables. You know, there's only so much you can fit in your standard fridge freezer or what have you. You know, you couldn't get 6 months worth of stuff in there. And when it comes to other perishables as well, fruit and vegetables, for example, difficult to, well, not difficult to buy in bulk, but obviously you have to consume them within a short amount of time. So it's not a universal solution, but it can help people out with other, you know, dry foods and other commodities. And things are getting ridiculous. And on it goes, and the next thing you know, you're getting your wages in a wheelbarrow, but that won't even buy you a loaf of bread. Do you know what I'm saying, people? It's all just a little bit of history repeating. Okay, people, I'm going to be bringing the stream to a close shortly. Please do stick around. As always, I'm going to see if anybody's live to redirect. Do have to fill you in on a quick channel update as well before we go, about change to the catchphrase game, whatever you want to call it, that we normally play during PMQs. It's been good to catch up with everybody this evening. Managed to make a decent live stream, despite the fact that they're skipping PMQs this week. I shall just remove the chat while I give another customary thank you to all the members on the channel. Of course, I look forward to updating that list. Thanks for all your contributions this evening. Great to see a couple of people celebrating their time as members with us as well. One final reminder, you can join this list of incredible people for just 99 pence. Please do hit the button to check out the perks, including exclusive content and members first viewing. Which is currently active on the latest content on the channel. So if you've not watched that already, please do check that out if you remember. No one's live at the moment, so I'm going to be streaming into an upcoming all shorts stream. Do check them out as well. Not that one. Bring you back up there in the chat. Thanks for another gifted membership there, Andy. Solidari-Tea, brother. Another Brew Crew legend, Andy Carter. So yes, I believe PMQs will be back next week. And just before I go, I'll give you the quick update that I mentioned about the channel. Now, I think this is regular viewers will know what I'm talking about. I think Postman Twat has had it far too easy over his time as a contender. Now, at the moment, we're keeping count of 2 phrases in PMQs. The first of all being deliver, and that's where Postman Twat is concerned. However, throwing it open to the whole house, being able to say deliver, I think gives him a bit too much of an advantage. And with the handicap being for the contenders that only Keith can mention their phrase, I don't think that's entirely fair. So, in future weeks, both Postman Twat and the contender, which in this case is the word plan, will both have to be uttered by Keith himself. And I think that'll sort of even the playing field, as it were. Also, it'll be a lot easier for me to keep up with things. You know, we enjoy playing the game and everything, but I often find myself either missing phrases that have been said, or find that I'm not concentrating on the question or the response too much because I'm listening out one of the words. So from now on, whether it's deliver or another phrase, it's only if Keith says them, only if Starmer says them. So that's going to be the change that's going to be coming up. Yeah, I was just giving that a bit of thought recently. Okay, so that's that. Oh yeah, and please do check out Mobius's channel on YouTube. Especially if you're of the green-fingered variety. Quite horticultural, aren't you there, Mobius? So, yeah, great stuff. Always happy to support other YouTube channels, especially from awesome members of the Brew Crew. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, they, thems and comrades alike, that's going to be it from me tonight on the Brews at 10, here on my left eye. I've been your host, Lefty. You've all been fantastic. Great to catch up with you legends in the Brew crew. So until next time, take care everybody, and my left, I'll be seeing you soon. Good night and free Palestine.